You wake up before sunrise. Your room smells like vinegar. You already know why. Somewhere in your town, someone is dying, maybe several someones. And today, it's your job to walk into their homes. You are a plague doctor. Not a real physician, not in the way you'd recognize one today. You are something stranger, a hired specialist, a walking warning sign. The real story of what you do and why you look the way you do is far stranger than the costume suggests. Start with the mask. You reach for it before you reach for anything else. It has a long beak curved downward, almost like a bird. Two glass lenses sit where your eyes should look out. You pack the inside of that beak with dried flowers, lavender, mint, sometimes a sponge soaked in vinegar. You believe the air itself is poisoned, not bacteria, not fleas. Air. This idea has a name, miasma theory, the belief that disease spreads through bad air, through foul-smelling vapors rising from rotting matter and the dead. It's wrong. But in your world, in the 1300s through the 1600s, it's the best explanation anyone has. So the mask isn't decoration, it's a filter. You believe the sweet-smelling herbs packed into that beak will purify the air before it reaches your lungs. You believe this completely. Your life depends on believing it. Now the robe. Heavy waxed leather, head to toe. Gloves. A wide-brimmed hat. A wooden cane, long enough that you never have to touch a patient with your bare hand. You look less like a healer and more like a creature. That's not an accident. People see you coming from down the street and they know exactly what your arrival means. Death is near, or it's already here. Here's something you don't expect. You are rarely a trained physician. Most actual doctors flee plague-stricken towns, unwilling to die for patients they likely cannot save. So towns hire whoever will take the job, a second-rate physician, a surgeon who couldn't find better work, sometimes someone with barely any medical training at all. You are paid by the town, not by your patients. A municipal employee, a contracted civil servant of death. Historians who study pandemics describe how plague doctors were often as much about visibility and public order as actual treatment. Officials needed to be seen doing something. You are, in part, that something. A performance of control during a time when almost nothing felt controllable. Your daily route takes you through narrow streets, past houses marked with red crosses, past doors nailed shut from the outside. You enter homes others refuse to enter. Inside, you find the signs you've learned to recognize. Swollen lymph nodes, dark and tender, in the armpit, the groin, the neck. These are called buboes, and they give the disease its name. Bubonic plague. What do you actually do for the person in front of you? Less than you'd hope. You might lance the buboes, draining them, sometimes with disastrous results since you don't understand sterilization. You might bleed the patient, following the era's belief that illness comes from imbalanced bodily fluids. None of it works, not really. The actual cause is a bacterium called Yersinia pestis, carried by fleas that live on rats, something no one in your century has the tools to see or understand. That bacterium wouldn't be identified until 1894, hundreds of years after your mask was first designed. You are operating with almost none of the right information, and yet you keep walking into infected homes. Why? Maybe it's the money. Plague doctors are often paid extraordinarily well, sometimes negotiating salaries and housing far beyond what an ordinary physician could expect. Death, it turns out, makes desperate towns generous. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's the strange permission that comes with the costume. Behind that beaked mask, you're not quite yourself. You're a role, a function. The grief pressing in on you might feel one step removed, filtered, the same way you believe the air is filtered. You go home each night, and you don't know if you'll wake up symptomatic tomorrow. Plague doctors die too, frequently. The waxed robe and beaked mask offer some real protection, accidentally, by keeping fleas off your skin. But you don't know that's why it works. You just know some of your colleagues survive years in this role, and others don't survive their first outbreak. There's a quiet horror in doing this job correctly and still possibly dying from it, simply because no one in your era has identified the actual cause. And yet the image of you, the beaked mask, the dark robe, the cane, becomes one of history's most enduring symbols, not because it cured anything, because it represents something deeper. The human instinct to put on armor against the invisible. To build a costume, a ritual, a procedure, even when the procedure is wrong, simply because doing something feels better than doing nothing. You'll find that instinct again, centuries later, in different forms. Hand sanitizer, N95 masks, plastic shields at grocery store checkouts. Different threats, different science, same underlying need. When the next sun rises, you'll pack the beak again. Lavender, mint, a fresh sponge of vinegar. You don't know if it's truly protecting you. You only know it's the only thing standing between you and the air you've been taught to fear. And maybe that's enough to make you walk through one more door.